Hello, and welcome to the Fours of the Tarot. Today, we'll hit the highlights of the fours of the minor arcana to help you with your own readings, or if you happen to read for others. Tarot can be used to gain insight and understanding into a variety of areas, including relationships, career, and personal growth, among others. Before we begin, I just want to say that the meanings I present today are ones I've found to be the most often the truth in my experience and practice. But your experience and practice might be different, and that's totally fine, and neither of us are wrong. All I hope, in any case, is that there is something in here that you can use or find helpful in some way. So, with that, let's continue. The fours and the minor arcana of the tarot typically represent structure and foundation. The fours, in general, represent what happens after our projects and inspiration has had time to play out. After we have our brilliant ideas, gather our resources, gain experience, well, now we can rejoice or withdraw from the results of that energy output. If you've seen a few of these already, then you know I always bring Kabbalah into it. So the Kabbalah Tree of Life is a diagram used in Kabbalah, which is a form of Jewish mysticism, and it's a way to visualize the different facets of divinity. So the Sephira, however you want to say it, represent the different containers of that divine energy, and the paths represent the different ways in which that divine form of intelligence interacts with the world. The Tree of Life is made up of 10 spheres, or sephira, which are connected by 22 paths. Each sephira represents a different aspect of the divine, and the paths represent the connections. The ultimate goal of Kabbalah is to help understand and connect with the sphere in order to achieve enlightenment and union with the divine, however you perceive it. So the Smith Rider Waite deck was created by members of the Golden Dawn, and while we don't go into any of the history of that today, what we can see clearly is that the deck makes many references and connections to Kabbalah. For instance, each path on the Tree of Life corresponds to a Hebrew letter, and each major arcana card corresponds to a Hebrew letter. Tarot, as we know it today, was not designed to mirror Kabbalah. The deck was, that most of us started with, was morphed you through all of the mystic wisdom of several ancient cultures, plus astrology, into a bowl, shook it up, and then, put all the pieces that looked like they fit together. That's kind of what a classic deck sort of captures. So then when we use the deck and peel back each layer of the cards, all of that wisdom and understanding kind of harmonizes into a meaning or insight that we can use. In my practice, I use the Tree of Life to help find the roots of issues that I consult with tarot on. So that's why each of these videos will touch on this topic as it relates to tarot. So since we're doing the fours today, the fourth sphere of the Tree of Life in Kabbalah is called Chesed, which holds meanings connected to love or mercy in Hebrew. In Kabbalistic thought, Chesed is the endless flow of loving energy. It is uncontrolled and has no limits or restrictions. If you imagine what actual unconditional love could be, this would be that pure energy. It has no boundaries, and like the universe, it's constantly expanding as far as it can possibly reach. We begin with the Four of Wands, which has some imagery that might make you think that there might be a wedding or major celebration happening. And while this card can definitely talk about those types of surface events, what does it really tell us about this card? A wedding, for example, was a way to unify communities, clans, and even countries. Part of showing us how we express loving energy as part of a larger group. Whatever is happening is bigger than just our individual selves. This card differs from the feeling you might remember from the Three of Cups, where we had a similar collective positive experience, because where that had a more spontaneous energy, the Four is deliberate. It is preparing for and participating in the event, not just being in the moment the way you would be when you're in the Three of Cups. What's also interesting about this card is that we have Venus and Aries, two planets that might look at first like oil and water, but today they're emulsifying really well together. In the majors, the Empress is ruled by Venus and the Emperor is ruled by Aries. So imagine what it might be like when they get together. Venus has softening power to Aries' rough edges, but without Aries' drive, we would have little to celebrate in the first place. A lot of authors and readers don't consider the reversal of this card to be a negative aspect of the upright. If you work with reversals, you know that it's never as easy as throwing a card into reverse. There's nuance. Where the upright spoke to how we manage our outside selves, the reversal calls us to account for what's happening in ourselves. Have you ever done something that went against how you really felt? Depending on the question you're trying to answer and the other cards around it, this card might have many possible meanings. Usually, it connects into some way how we adapt and perform out in the world. If you are familiar with the concept of masking, like putting on an image that you think is more acceptable to the people you interact with outside your private life. With the Four of Swords, we're taking a journey inward. Whether we're searching for meaning through meditation or resting our physical bodies, this card shows no movement. And you can hear the silence of it, if that makes any sense. The figure in this card appears to be a statue on top of a death box, but it's also representative of a ritual that some knights in Europe might have done in the 1100 to 1500 period, the night vigil. Some accounts say they actually laid down on a slab all night as part of their spiritual development, but they did not sleep. They were still, but they were aware of everything around them. The swords show their purpose as being of the mind and about our thoughts. In this chapel, we are alone with our thoughts. We have no one to impress or compete with. We can finally let go of our ego and feel the endless flow, the chesed. When you can let go of yourself and your ego, you can feel what that flow means. When you're outside that chapel as well, the flow of loving kindness can now extend to all living beings, including yourself. Reversals are not opposites to the uprights until they are. So in the upright, we went within ourselves to a place of stillness and quiet. Now we're being called back into battle, so to speak. There's something we need to do or something we need to respond to. In my experience, reverse swords can show injuries, accidents, medical treatments, basically things that enter the body. If the other meanings don't apply to the situation, perhaps this card is assisting another one to create a blend or a card combo. The Four of Cups needs some space. In the Golden Dawn tradition, this is called the Lord of Blended Pleasure, which is to say that we are so immersed in our emotions that it's overwhelming. The figure in the card appears to be closed off. They've had enough of the cups that are being offered, and yet the flow continues and cup after cup keeps appearing. Do you remember the Disney movie Fantasia? And in it there was this bit called The Sorcerer's Apprentice. The apprentice turned on the flow of magic and could not turn it off. That's Chesed in a nutshell. If we are prepared for a constant flow, we can just shut down. This card should feel a bit lighter in its reversal because we presumably aren't feeling as closed off at this point. That said, we might not be perfectly stable yet, but we are at least trying to reemerge. We might be going back out to life or being aware that we do need to get out more. At this point, like now you're trying to take what the universe is offering. Now you know what you need and are ready to go after it. And sometimes this card is showing us that all you need is a sign, like a fairy favor. You just have to keep your eyes open. But be cautious because those favors can be double edged. Maybe the help that you thought you needed that you got actually turns out to be, troublesome later on. If it's about an event, a person has a hard time stopping to smell the roses. How do you respond when your resources or material well being are threatened? Whether it's the fear of interest rates or losing a job, that can cause us to grip what we have super tight to hold it down. The only problem with that is that it artificially blocks the flow. It's okay to be protective and keep track of our material things, but It can't be our only concern or driver. An extreme evolution of this card is found in the devil and that destructive obsession. Both cards being ruled by Capricorn, indicating that bond to the material realm. In its reversal, the grip is loosening a bit, whether we're doing so consciously or slipping without realizing it. It might be showing a lack of protection, something exposed or vulnerable, something important. So when you get this card, make sure you're secure, literally and figuratively. Not leaving things unlocked would be a good thing to bring up. If this card is up, something is out of balance, and we're now in this card. We're trying to restore it. So check the surrounding cards for how to go about that. Thank you so much for watching. There is no way I covered off all the many meanings the cards have. I just tried to hit the highlights. If you have a few books from the sort of like core writers and teachers of the last 100 years, you already have plenty of guidance to work with as you develop your psychic skills. I just hope there's a little here that you find useful or something that helps a card open up for you as you practice. If you pause the video in different spots, you'll be able to read them as you need them. But if you wanted to have a printable copy of all the cards we've done so far, those are available to patrons on Lost and Found Patreon if you are by any chance interested in supporting it. Hopefully you'll hop over to the next video in the series when we go over the fives of the minor arcana. So I'll see you over there. Take care.